Witness stand, ma'am, and when you get there, if you will, before you have a seat, turn around and face the deputy and raise your right hand. He'll swear you in.
Do you swear affirm to the testimony that you're about to give truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, sir?
Yes.
Let me have a seat. Please state and spell your full name.
Rosa, R-O-S-A, James, J-A-M-E-S.
Did you already do the instruction order?
My understanding was after you had qualified
Oh, okay.
or attempted to qualify her.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Ms. James.
Good afternoon.
How are you employed?
I'm currently employed, well, self-employed at my consulting company called Sania's Place, LLC. I was going to spell it. S-A-N-I-Y-A-H, Place, LLC.
And if you can tell the juror your job duties and responsibilities at your consulting firm.
So my job duties as a consultant is I'm a researcher, practitioner, and also a trainer for intimate partner violence and gender-based violence. I also do sexual violence and child abuse. I do trainings, I do presentations, panels, whatever the community needs me to do, and I also do expert testimonies.
And how long have you had your consulting firm?
It's been open since January of 2023.
And if you can tell the jurors, how long have you been in the space of working in intimate partner violence?
I started working in the intimate partner violence movement in 2012.
Okay. And just tell the jury about your education, your job training in intimate partner violence.
So I started working in the intimate partner violence movement in 2012 at Harbor House of Central Florida. That is a local domestic violence center in Orlando, Florida. And then I continued throughout I continued to the Florida Coalition Against Domestic Violence, and then I moved to the Georgia Coalition Against Domestic Violence, and that's how I got to Georgia. My education background, I have a bachelor's of Science and Legal Studies from the University of Central Florida. I have a Master's of Social Work from the University of Central Florida, which is a clinical program. I also am currently finishing up my PhD at Clark Atlanta University in the social work program, policy and organizational leadership. From the Georgia Coalition Against Domestic Violence, I transitioned to the District Attorney's Office as a domestic violence trainer in July of 2019. And then when Madam DA came into office, I became a senior advocate, senior victim witness advocate, the domestic violence trainer, and domestic violence expert.
And you said you're currently getting your PhD at Clark Atlanta?
Clark Atlanta University.
And are you currently at the dissertation stage?
Yes.
What is your dissertation on?
My dissertation is on intimate partner violence, Black women in service delivery of the local domestic violence centers in Georgia.
Now, you said that you served as a trainer at both the Georgia Coalition Against Domestic Violence and the Florida Coalition Against Domestic Violence. If you could tell the jurors, what type of training have you conducted?
So the foundation of the trainings that I conducted at those two coalitions, they statewide coalitions, is I trained advocates to service survivors of domestic violence. And also these trainings lasted 3 days. On top of that, I had to train the community members as far as healthcare, different systems like healthcare, law enforcement, even in Florida, prosecution offices, any community members throughout the state of Florida and throughout the state of Georgia about domestic violence. I also trained advocates on protective orders. In Florida is injunctions. We train them how to be legal advocates in a sense where they have to help survivors with their injunctions as far as helping them through the court process. And also I've done trainings on the queer community and domestic violence and basically a vast majority of intimate partner violence, child abuse, and how all that relates to gender-based violence.
And over your years of working in the field of intimate partner violence and gender-based violence, have you met with and spoken with victims of intimate partner violence?
Yes, I started, like I said, I started in 2012, and that was immediately contact with survivors, and through face-to-face trainings, hotline calls, well over 20,000 contacts with survivors of domestic violence.
And I said victim and you said survivors. Tell me, why do you use the term survivors?
So in our world and in the movement, we use survivor because the survivor is a term of endearment. And also some survivors, they use thrivers. They have thrived through the domestic violence. We only typically use victim in this realm, or where I am in the science realm, in the advocacy realm, if someone has fallen due to domestic violence, a casualty.
And you talked about having over 20,000 contacts with survivors of domestic or intimate partner violence. Has those interviews and conversations and interactions assisted you in your understanding of domestic violence relationship dynamics?
Yes.
Now, over your course and working in the field as well, have you met and spoken with offenders or abusers?
Yes.
And can you estimate for the jury about how much contact have you had with offenders or abusers?
So I've had a year of contact with what we would call perpetrators or abusers, because I taught in Florida batterers intervention courses, which is a 32-week-long course that the courts in Florida mandate that if you receive an injunction that you must take.
And have those interactions, those trainings, informed you regarding your understanding of domestic violence and the dynamics of domestic violence?
Yes, it has.
Have you ever testified in the state of Georgia as an expert in domestic violence?
Yes.
How many times?
So Florida has been 27, and I'm about to do the math. I want to say around 47, 48 times in the state of Georgia.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would like to tender Ms. Rosa James as an expert in domestic violence relationships, and domestic violence relationship dynamics.
Mr. Samuel?
We'll reserve word here for cross-examination.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Samuel, come here, please. Ms. Hilton, y'all both come here.
Would you like me to step out?
No, you're fine. Thank you. The state is offering, excuse me, I'm sorry. The state is offering the testimony of Ms. James as an expert witness. And so at this moment, I'm going to just instruct you generally that people who testify as experts are testifying because the proponent of the evidence believes that they have specialized experience, training, knowledge in a particular field that's not common knowledge or known to the average citizen. And the law permits a person who is testifying as an expert witness to give their opinions based on that training and experience. You are not required to accept the testimony of any witnesses, expert or otherwise, and testimony of an expert like that of all witnesses is to be given only such weight and credit as you think it is properly entitled to receive. Thank you. Please go ahead, Ms. Hilton.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. James, can you please define domestic violence for the jury?
Yes, the definition of domestic violence is a pattern of coercive behaviors to gain and maintain control over your partner.
And based on this, your training and knowledge, how familiar is the public with the issue of intimate partner and domestic violence?
So the public is familiar with the concept of intimate partner violence, specifically the physical aspect, but the science behind that, the science behind domestic violence, the public typically isn't well versed about what's under the iceberg, typically just above, which is physical violence or any type of sexual violence.
And over the course of the years, has there been some type of increased knowledge with the public as it relates to people watching kind of like true crime television?
Yes, it's specifically, the boom of the internet is information that's there, and through the true crime or any type of documentary, yes, the public can access that information.
However, in your experience, has the knowledge that comes from, say, internet or from podcasts or true crimes, is that the full knowledge or understanding of the science of domestic violence?
No, it is not.
Based on your work in the field, what are some common misconceptions regarding domestic violence?
So the biggest misconception, if the survivor leaves the relationship, the abuse will stop. And that is not true. The data shows that's the most lethal time in the relationship. That is when the survivor is under the most danger and most likely to be killed. So that is a misconception. The abuse does not stop just because someone leaves the relationship.
And based on kind of some of the trainings that you've done in your experience, what are some of the beliefs about why an individual may remain in an abusive relationship?
So there's a host of concepts and theories and perspectives of why someone would remain in an abusive relationship. The biggest factor is power and control. This person has exerted power and control, and the victim or the survivor feels as if they have to stay and remain in this relationship. Also, there's a component of fear and protection, protection of children, protection of self, protection of family members. It's many different dynamics of domestic violence why someone would remain in that cycle of abuse.
And are there any is there any research about how long it usually takes a survivor to leave an abusive relationship?
Yes, the research state on average it takes 7 times to fully leave a relationship that is abusive.
Now, are you familiar with the term or the concept of the cycle of violence?
Yes.
How are you familiar with the cycle of violence?
So the cycle of violence is a cycle that shows how a survivor would remain inside or trapped inside of a abusive relationship with their partner.
And is there a demonstrative that you sometimes use in order to explain the cycle of violence, or is it also called the cycle of abuse?
Yes.
You have permission to approach?
Go ahead.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as Stacy's Exhibit number 79. Do you recognize Stacy's Exhibit 79?
Yes.
And how do you recognize Stacy's Exhibit number 79?
This is a cycle of abuse. It's an evidence-based tool we use in our practice to show how survivors stay in relationships.
And will this demonstrative assist you in explaining the cycle of abuse to jury?
Yes.
You're at this time to state would like to admit Stacy's Exhibit 79.
Mr. Samuel,
No objection.
79 is admitted.
Permission to publish.
Permission granted.
Of abuse and explaining the demonstrative that's on the screen.
Yes, so the cycle of abuse, like I stated, is a cycle in which they trapped inside of an abusive relationship. And I know that the public is very familiar with some of these terms, such as or even the tension building phase, but I want to explain based on a social theory from 1979 of how we see someone staying inside the relationship with the tension building, right? This is right before the incident. Physical, economical, it can be humiliation, it could be intimidation, it could be a whole host of things. And it doesn't have to be a physical incident of arrest, right? So that's when the incident happens. In the reconciliation phase, where we're seeing about guilt, right? Sometimes the survivor feels guilt during this phase. This is the phase where I see survivors wanting to release the charges. This is why I see survivors wanting to recant or even fund the batterers or perpetrators funds when they're in jail. This is when the perpetrator, either he apologizes or he blames the victim for what happened to them, and oh, it wasn't as bad as it was. This is where a lot of the term gaslighting comes in, and it's basically a conversation back and forth between the survivor and the perpetrator where they're getting back into the relationship. It does not have to look like a honeymoon phase where you're getting flowers and all these things. That's why we no longer really use that term anymore, and that's why we use the phase calm. So in this phase, most likely the abuse is forgotten, the incident is forgotten. We just move on with life like this never happened. That's what I see the most in my field, in my personal observation in the field that I work in. It's just forgotten. It didn't take place. These things happen in relationships. We move on. But like I said, it doesn't always look like, oh, you're getting flowers, you're getting presents and gifts, and it's all love. It doesn't always look like that. Sometimes it just looks like we're moving on with life.
And you kind of talk about in the incident phase, it could be verbal, emotional, or physical. Is it usually one of those three, verbal, emotional, or physical?
It could be a whole host of things. It doesn't always have to be fit into that box, because domestic violence is not a box. Every relationship looks different. Every incident looks different.
Now, in the field, is there also a concept of the power and control wheel?
Yes. The power and control wheel was created in 1980. It's a qualitative tool where 300 survivors were interviewed, and we use ground theory, which is a themes theory, to find different themes, well, similar themes, to create this wheel to show the tactics of the perpetrator.
And have you used a demonstration of that power and control wheel to explain how an abuser will exert power and control over a survivor?
Yes.
Now I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 75. Do you recognize State's Exhibit number 75?
Yes.
And how do you recognize State's Exhibit 75?
It is the power and control wheel.
And would that help you today in your testimony and explain to the jury the power and control that abusers use in relationships?
Yes.
You're right, this time the state like limit State's Exhibit 75 for demonstrative.
This is a demonstrative exhibit?
Yes, sir.
No objection to using it as a demonstrative exhibit.
Exhibit 75 is admitted for demonstrative purposes.
Thank you, Your Honor. Looking at State's Exhibit number 75. Okay, let me remove them. If you can, and what I'll do is I'll navigate over here. Just tell me when I need to go up or down. So go down. Okay.
To show like the contributing factors and
Okay.
oh, that's
All right. Mm-hmm. Okay. So if you can explain kind of the wheel itself, and if you could, you may have to step down just because you might not be able to do on this channel. Yeah. So to explain to the jurors what's this.
So I want to explain to you all what this wheel is, but I want to tell you why it's structured this way. So on the outside, so first, this isn't the first wheel. This wheel has evolved since 1980. And the reason why I use this wheel, because it's a very much gender neutral wheel, because we understand that domestic violence isn't just gendered from man and woman, right? It is a whole host of genders, a whole host of communities that suffer from intimate partner violence. And it's structured this way because the physical and sexual violence is seen. Those are things that can be seen, so that's why they're on the outside of the wheel. And these are systems that contribute to intimate partner violence, right? Systems, isms, and things I train about when I'm out in the community trying to help people understand how these different systems could trap someone in a relationship, right? So on the inside, we're going to start with using intimidation. On the inside, these are factors or tactics you may not see when you approach or survive of domestic violence. You may not see intimidation. Mind you, these are all inside the spokes. You may not see someone right over the book. You may not see someone abusing pets or using weapons as threats, right? Putting a gun on the table is not illegal. You may not see the emotional abuse. You may not see that person being put down. You may not see the humiliation, or you may not even think that that person is being humiliated or being exposed in that moment as a form of power and control. Using isolation. This is very important because this happens very early in a relationship. They isolate you to them and their support system, right? They don't want you to have any outside friends. They don't want you to have any outside family. They don't want you to have sisters, sorority sisters, or whatever is your support system. Sometimes this transfers, like it's parallel to economic abuse, right? Your livelihood. So what I see a lot in isolation is survivors being pulled away from their family, right? Being moved across country, or being told that it's abnormal to speak with your family members every day, right? They're trying to reduce your access to people so that others on the outside don't see the abuse that's going on inside the home. Minimize it, right? It wasn't that bad. What are you talking about? I'm minimizing the joke. I'm minimizing what took place. Specifically on the cycle abuse, the incident. There's a minimization going on during the reconciliation phase. It wasn't that bad. You made it look like it was end of the world and it wasn't. Using children. That is a major, major part of why a lot of survivors stay in relationships, because they want to protect their children, right? That is just the natural part of being an adult. And sometimes when there's a separation, because this abuse can continue outside of the relationship. The relationship could end, but if you have that connection with children, we can start using the children as the go-between. We can start using the children as someone else to continue the power and control and the abuse. We can also use children to harass family members, use children to indirectly affect your livelihood, right? Calling your place of employment, and things of that nature. Now we use privilege. So this is changed to use. We can use the Bible, we can use someone's race, their culture. Privilege can look a lot of different ways. In economic abuse, I always talk about you must have control of all the money, you must make the most money. No, it could simply be tampering with a survivor's car so that they can't go to work, right? Ruining credit, continuously getting evicted, invasion of accounts. It could look any way, but the whole goal is to take control of your economic livelihood. Using coercion and threats, that's in the definition. I'm going to coerce you to stay in this relationship. Coercion is really used a lot in the queer community. I'm going to out you. This wheel, the healthy relationship wheel, we have so many different wheels out right now, but it is the same concept, power and control.
Thank you. And in every abusive relationship, will you see every tactic used?
No.
In order to define a relationship as an abusive relationship, does there have to be like a magic number of events or physical violence or a certain amount of times that someone uses isolation to define that this relationship is domestic violence?
No.
How do you distinguish in the field, say, an isolated incident from a relationship that would be considered a domestic violence relationship?
So to explain an isolated incident, we look back at the definition of domestic violence. The definition is a pattern of coercive behaviors to gain and maintain control. That's what it is. And if there is a pattern, it doesn't take, it's an indefinite number, right? We don't have a certain number. We don't have a certain theme for it to fit in. As long as it fits under that definition and that survivor is explaining that relationship from beginning to end or in the middle, patterns of coercive behavior to gain and maintain power and control, or for the perpetrator to exert power and control, we define that as a domestic violence relationship.
Now, is there any literature regarding the various roles an abuser can play during a domestic violence relationship?
Yes, so there is trainings and information out there about men who batter, right? But we still use that foundation for all genders. And in that training and in that information, the roles that a perpetrator will play to gain and maintain that control is the hero, the judger, or the victim. In that relationship, we see that theme continuously circling and circling to show power and control against their intimate partner.
Okay, so you said it's the hero, the judger, and the victim.
Yes.
Can you explain the hero role?
So the hero usually shows up first, right? I'm saving you from your family. I'm saving you from your friends. I'm saving you from economic depression. I'm saving you from food insecurities. I am here to be a savior, to push you forward in life, right? And there's no infinite time on how long that will last. But yes, I'm the hero. I'm here to save this family, and I'm here to save you from yourself. When we think about the judger, let's go back to the hero. I have saved you. And then as the judger, you may say, the survivor may say, oh, now I want to connect with my family again. I feel like it's time. I think forgiveness is the right answer. Then I'm going to judge you for that, right? No, why would I save you from them? Why would you go to some place where they hurt you? Why would you interact with people who harmed you? I saved you from that. So I'm judging you in that because I don't want you to go over there, right? I want to maintain that power and control. So I'm judging everything you do when it comes to seeking outside support. And then the victim is, this is a basic answer of the victim. The survivor is now, perpetrator is like the perpetrator playing the victim. The survivor says, I'm leaving the relationship. This is not healthy for me. And then we play the victim role. Like, what did I do to you? I saved you, and now you're trying to leave me. I deserve closure. I deserve these things because I am the victim here. And you're leaving me for no reason, right? You're leaving me for no reason. I did all these things for you. It exerts this level of guilt that can keep a survivor in the relationship as well.
Is it unusual for a victim of domestic violence to remain in a relationship with the abuser after the abuser physically assaults them?
It's not unusual. It's very common.
And why is it common?
So we go back to coercion, we go back to reconciliation. It wasn't that bad. You did this to me. We could make this work. Everyone has heard the term, this will never happen again, right? So it's a level of guilt that the survivor is hearing, or a level of happiness because, wow, they've told me that this won't happen again. This person is actually owning up to what they did, and now we can move forward in a relationship.
Same question. Is it unusual for a victim of domestic violence to remain after someone verbally abuses or verbally assaults them?
Yes, it is very common for someone to stay.
Is it for the same reason that you kind of just discussed?
Yes. Or even sometimes survivors blame themselves when it comes to verbal abuse or emotional abuse. Like, I deserve that. I really was acting that way.
Is it unusual for a victim of domestic violence not to pursue criminal charges in the case?
It's not unusual.
Ms. Hilton, are you done with that exhibit?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes,
That's
Your Honor.
okay, if you could take down your screen share.
Yes. And is it unusual for a victim or for a survivor of domestic violence to withdraw or ask for a temporary protective order to be dismissed or withdrawn?
It's not unusual.
Why not?
I want to go back to the reconciliation, that when we're reconciling, right? So the survivor may believe the perpetrator has changed. This is not necessary. This is we're overdoing it, right? Yeah, I believe that this is way too much. Like, I believe that you're going to co-parent appropriately, and we don't need all these parameters. You could be coerced into that, or a survivor can say, well, we're always going to have they told me that we're always going to have a third party when exchanging children. We're always going to, this person is not going to do these things alone with me anymore. So, of course, I don't need this level of protection anymore.
And I use the term a temporary protective order. Can you define what a temporary protective order is?
So in Georgia, a temporary protective order is what the community would know as a restraining order, that you can't be within X amount of feet of me. You cannot be alone with me. You cannot be within X amount of feet. You cannot contact me indirectly or directly. You cannot use family members, friends, siblings to send messages. This is a complete stop of communication. And
in Georgia, to get a temporary protective order, is that a civil hearing? Like, are both parties present when at a civil hearing to get a temporary protective order?
Yes, so you're going to have a plaintiff and defendant, but it's a civil proceeding. It does not turn criminal until that protection order is violated. But it's a civil proceeding. It is done in front of a, depending on the county, a family court judge, or done in the protective orders office to have due process, because the defendant of that temporary protective order gets to deserve, constitutionally rights. They are able to do due process.
Now, earlier we talked about kind of isolation as it relates to the power control wheel. Hypothetically, if an abuser or perpetrator moves a victim to a location where she's unfamiliar, has no friends or family, can that be a form of isolation?
Yes.
How can that be a form of isolation?
So that can be a form of isolation because you are moving that survivor away from their support system. You are now around my family and friends, and they will be your influence at that time. So you have no immediate access to any support system when you're moved up and rooted from a place you know and are familiar with to somewhere that's new.
Hypothetically, if an abuser moves the victim to a neighborhood, or a perpetrator, moves a victim to a neighborhood for which he's familiar, he has friends, he has family in that neighborhood, he has neighbors in that neighborhood, and he never introduces his significant other to those individuals, can that be a form of isolation?
Yes.
How?
So that's a form of isolation where you are keeping the survivor in the home or away from the community so that the survivor cannot even create their own community. Right? You typically, when someone moves to a new community, you end up creating your own community, right? If you don't know anyone, you would be introduced as someone's spouse, and then typically in a healthy relationship, that spouse gets to navigate that neighborhood, join committees, or do whatever they need to do to feel comfortable.
We talked about isolation, and if an abuser, can an abuser isolate you, strike that. If an abuser isolates you from your children, can that be a form of control?
Yes.
Are there times when a perpetrator uses family members to kind of step into the place to exert power and control over a victim?
Yes.
How can that happen?
So specifically, if you're isolated to your partner's family members, they can use coercion as well. They can use the children. They can use these same tactics of emotional abuse and minimizing and threats to keep you in that abusive relationship. They're just doing it from the outside, but they can still be enablers. They can enable the perpetrator's behavior and use the same exact tactics that a perpetrator would use to keep you in that relationship.
In your experience, if a survivor is being abused and maybe her family members, his or her, family members maybe see signs of that abuse and they want to confront the abuser, and the survivor stops them from confronting the abuser. In your experience, what are some of the reasons that the survivor will not want a family member to, say, confront or approach an abuser?
Your Honor, I object to individual instances of her experience.
Sustained. You can rephrase if you'd like.
Sure. Hypothetically speaking, if a survivor does not want her family member his or her family member to approach or to speak with an abuser, is that a form of self-protection?
Yes.
How?
So when we think about the dynamics of domestic violence, when we have outside family members approaching the perpetrator, the survivor is going to take the brunt of the blame for that family member or friend approaching and accusing or exposing domestic violence, right? Specifically if the survivor is still living in the home. So it is a form of protection. And it also can be a form of protection for the children.
Now, as it relates to this case, what, if any, information did you have as it relates to this particular case here?
I don't have any information. As an expert, I come in blindly because I'm here to stay within the psychoeducation and the science of domestic violence.
Let me ask you this. Did you know that this was a murder case?
Yes.
Did you read any police reports as it related to this case?
No.
Did you view any temporary protective orders as it relates to this case?
No.
Did you listen to any interviews as it relates to this case?
No.
Did you interview anyone as it relates to this case?
No.
You spoke about earlier that you've been qualified as an expert in Georgia in about 47 cases. In those previous cases, have you had substantial information about those cases when you testified?
No.
Can you tell the jurors about being a kind of general expert? What's that mean?
So,
A what?
A general expert.
General expert? I don't know what that means, Your Honor.
Sure.
I guess that's why she's asking the question.
Right.
Why is it that you choose to have minimal information about the case?
I have minimal information because as an expert, I am not here to diagnose domestic violence, and I'm not here to prove guilt or innocent. I am an expert. I'm a social scientist on intimate partner violence, and that's all I can offer the court.
Okay. Are you getting paid to testify today?
Yes.
How much are you being paid?
$250 per hour.
And was your testimony today based on your education experience working with domestic violence survivors?
Yes.
Court's indulgence for a moment.
Sure.
Let me ask you this. hypothetically, if a survivor gives full custody of her children to the perpetrator's mother, can that in some way be used to exert some form of power control over a perpetrator?
Your Honor,
over a survivor.
I'm sorry. I object to this kind of using evidence and posing it as a hypothetical to specifically ask her opinion of that specific conduct.
Understood. Overruled. Go ahead.
Do you need me to rephrase?
Yes.
Hypothetically, if a survivor gives full custody of her children to a perpetrator's mother, can that be used in some way to exert some form of power control over that survivor?
Yes.
How?
So if the perpetrator's parents now have the children, they have control of the children. They make choices for the children, and that leaves the survivor powerless in that situation unless the survivor navigates to comply with the current guardian's requests, the current guardian's recommendations. It could lead to an imbalance of power from that parent. So yes, that can be definitely a form of exerting power and control.
Court's indulgence.
Sure.
Careful. Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Samuel, questions for this witness?
I don't want to mess up my other ankle.
Good morning. Good afternoon, Ms. James.
Good afternoon.
Not doctor yet, right?
Almost.
Almost. When will you be doctor?
May of 2026.
Excellent. You and I met only once before, right?
Yes.
A couple weeks ago. In this courtroom, right?
Yes, about a week ago.
I'm going to ask you some of the same questions as Ms. Hilton. First of all, you actually worked at the Fulton County DA's office for quite some time, right?
Yes.
How many years were you working there?
I started work in July of 2019, and I left in January of 2023.
Okay, so 4-ish years.
Yes.
Okay. And did you work with Ms. Hilton during that time?
Yes.
With Mr. Fawcett or Mr. Wilson?
No.
Okay. How many times have you worked with Ms. Hilton in a case?
So in the victim advocate role, we are assigned certain courtrooms. So I would only work with Ms. Simone if she was doing a case, if she was assigned to that courtroom or a case to that courtroom. And also she was the deputy, what we would call the deputy district attorney for the domestic violence unit. So she had minimal interaction with the bulk of the cases.
Just asking you for a number somewhere between X and Y.
I don't really, I can't really define a number.
That's not a problem. How many times have you testified as an expert in one of her cases?
I believe once.
Okay. Of the 47 times that you testified in Georgia, were they always for Fulton County?
No.
Percentage-wise?
If we're looking at a percentage, most, I would say maybe 95%
Were Fulton County.
were Fulton County.
Right. So 95% of 47 would be, I don't know, 45, something like that?
But also one of those cases was with the defense.
Okay. So there was only one occasion where you ever testified for the defense?
In Fulton County.
Okay. And all the other times you were testifying either for Fulton County or, I don't know, DeKalb, Gwinnett, Cobb, somewhere? Correct?
Rephrase.
Well, I was just trying to do the arithmetic, but you said 47 times. One time you testified for the defense. The other, whatever, 44 or 45 times you testified for the prosecution. And almost all in Fulton County.
Yes.
Okay. And so you're being paid now to be an expert instead of being a member of their staff and just coming in and testifying, they meaning the prosecutors. Now you went out on your own and you get to bill for your time, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And do you bill for all your time or just when you're sitting in the chair?
I bill for all my time.
Okay. So when we're late starting court in the morning and you have to sit out there, you bill $250 for that too?
Yes.
Okay. We'll have to remember that, Your Honor. Do you know how much you've been paid, how much you've billed in this case, or how much your hourly has been in this case so far?
Not yet.
Well, I know you haven't finished yet, but estimate the amount of hours you've put into preparing to testify in this case.
I would say estimated 3 or 4.
Okay. And you met with Ms. Hilton, obviously, correct?
Yes.
She reviewed the questions she was going to ask you.
Yes.
She reviewed the hypotheticals she was going to ask you.
Yes.
She told you, I'm going to ask you in particular about isolation, and she said, I'm going to ask you in particular about the family, having custody of the children, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you told her what your answers were going to be when she asked you those questions, right?
Yes.
Okay. Did she ask you any questions, I'm curious, in preparing that you said, no, I'm not going to be able to help you on that?
No.
Okay. So she would say, I'm going to ask you X and Y and Z and A and B, and you said, yeah, I can help you with all those things.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to ask you a few different times and in a few different ways about your knowledge of the facts of this case. But before I do that, I'll probably end just like Ms. Hilton did with that. Your testimony, in essence, is an opinion based on a lot of experience in teaching and meeting with people and reading about the characteristics of abusive relationships, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You said, I wrote it down, that you can't put abusers in a box. I'm not talking about punishment, talking about, one size fits all doesn't work, does it?
Yes.
That's correct, right?
Yes.
Okay, I asked a negative. That if you looked at did you say thousands maybe, or hundreds of abusive relationships you've looked at, more than just, a little bit, they're all different, right?
Yes.
Okay. Every relationship is unique, right?
Yes.
The abusers, and I'll just say the partners, whether they're gay or lesbian or trans or male-female or whatever, they can be wealthy and still have an abusive relationship.
Yes.
They can be poor, poverty-stricken, and still have an abusive relationship.
Yes.
There can be a family of history of abuse, a family history of abuse. In other words, generation to generation, correct?
Yes.
Sometimes you'll see partners for whom both sets of parents were in fact abusive, right?
Yes.
But sometimes you'll see partners for whom the parents, there's no evidence of any history of abuse in the generation above the one that you're looking at, right?
Yes.
Some parents, again, I'm talking parents of the partners, are abusive to each other, right?
Yes.
Some parents are abusive to their children, correct?
Yes.
Including the people you look at who then become the partners in the abusive relationship.
Rephrase.
Okay, I've got two generations
Yes.
here. I got the generation above the partners being, however you want to characterize them, whether man, woman, or whatever, abuser and what was the other word? Driver, you said? What was you said instead of victim, we call them?
Survivors.
Survivor, and so I'm looking at the generation above. Sometimes they're abusive to each other, right?
Yes.
And both the abuser and the survivor may think of their parents and think, this is normal. This is how I was brought up in my family. And justify it in their head, correct?
Yes.
And so what I was asking then was, is it sometimes the case that the parents of either the abuser or the survivor are abusive to that person.
Yes.
So abuse isn't always just limited to same generation, if you will.
No.
You can be abusive to your children, whether your children are adults or teenagers, or you can be abusive to your grandparents, right?
Yes.
Some parents spank their children, some parents don't spank their children, right?
Yes.
We wouldn't call that abuse unless it went overboard, correct?
I can't define that in this context.
Okay, not a problem.
Yeah.
I guess some parents are guilty of crimes, right? Parents of the partners you're looking at.
Yes.
You ever had a case, or do you have any experience in a case where the partners, the alleged abuser and the alleged survivor, you know, the people you're looking at, that one of them is the child of a serial murderer?
No.
Would that be unusual?
I can't answer that in
Would
this
that
context.
fit, I'm sorry.
I can't answer that
Would
for
that-
you. I'm sorry.
Would that fit the dynamic that you're looking at, or would that be kind of outside the wheel and have to try to figure out what's going on there?
It sounds like out of the scope.
Yeah. Some people run away from home at a young age, teenagers, right?
Yes.
Some people marry at a very young age, 16, 17 years old, right?
Yes.
Okay. Some people don't. Some people get married late in life, right?
Yes.
Okay. Some people are suffering from PTSD, perhaps veterans, right?
In general, yes.
Okay.
It's a diagnosis.
Yeah. And PTSD can be caused by a variety of things, correct? Not just being in Afghanistan, but maybe from your upbringing, correct?
I'm hesitating to answer that because I don't practice. I don't do clinical practice in Georgia. I'm not licensed in Georgia to do clinical. I'm only licensed in Florida. That's why I'm hesitating to kind of answer that, because I don't want to be unethical in the state of Georgia when it comes to like diagnoses and mental health and a DSM-5.
Let me put you at ease a little bit. I'm not going to ask you for a diagnosis today. You're not going to be sued for malpractice for anything.
I don't want to.
Just in general, I'm not a doctor either. You know, PTSD can be the result of all kinds of different kinds of trauma, correct?
Yes.
Post-traumatic, right?
Yes.
It could be something that happened in your childhood. It could be something that happened when you were a teenager. It could be something that happened when you were in the military, right?
Yes.
All those things can create PTSD. Is PTSD something that you see in your experience being part of the dynamic, the wheel, if you will?
No.
Okay. You don't see people who are suffering from mental health problems?
So when we talk about the definition of domestic violence, we practice as it is a choice. I'm trying to make sure I stay ethical.
Yeah, sure.
We practice it as a choice, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm asking is, I apologize if my question was lousy, but either the abuser or the survivor might be suffering from mental health issues, correct?
Possibly.
Okay. If you look for the root cause of abuse, it might be, for example, infidelity.
The root cause, what we study is under the definition is exertion of power and control.
Well, that is the abuse. But the cause, if we treat it as something that's caused by something, either you and I, you're at least close to being a doctor. I'm nowhere close to being a doctor. Something causes either the person to be the abusive partner, and something causes the survivor to be susceptible to being. I'm not asking what abuse is. We'll get to that. I'm asking what causes it.
What causes is a choice. There's no diagnosis for domestic violence. There's no root causes of domestic violence. It is one individual making a choice that they believe is right to exert power and control over their partner.
Does the age and duration of the relationship have an impact on what would lead to abuse?
No.
There may be problems with alcohol.
Yes.
There may be problems with drug abuse.
Within the relationship, yes.
Huh?
Oh, within the relationship, yes.
Right. And there may be other, as I said, mental health issues involved that you have to deal with in the relationship.
Personally, each individual, they may have their own.
Right. You don't believe, and I think you said this to Ms. Hilton, that all abusive relationships are the same either.
Yes, they're all, each one is unique.
Right. Some may be more physically abusive, some may be more emotionally abusive.
Yes.
No expert would ever claim that all abusive relationships have the same characteristics or the same causes, correct?
Correct.
Right. Your wheel, for example, that we had on the screen for a while. Remember this?
Yes.
This is demonstrative exhibit 75. I don't think we need to put it on the screen again, but I bet you've memorized this, haven't you?
Yes, it's one of my tools. So
Yeah. How often have you used this in court?
many times.
Okay. The wheel, each of the pies, each of the pie pieces, right? The wheel looks like a pie, kind of, right?
The spokes?
Well, you
Yes.
call them spokes, but I'm looking at the triangles as pieces of pie. Maybe that's because I'm thinking of food. But
Sure.
and each of these pieces of pie have lists of examples of how we use, intimidation is used, how emotional abuse is used, isolation, minimizing children, privilege, economic abuse. Did Ms. Hilton review this with you and say, let's see how many of these factors we can find in our case?
No.
Have you talked to her about it before?
I spoke with her about the power and control wheel, yes.
Okay. Did she talk to you about the fact that we are not involved in this case with ruining or destroying property? Are you aware of any evidence of that in this case, either through hypothetical questions or what you were told by the DA's office?
No, I'm not aware of any of
Anything
that.
to do with abusing pets?
I'm not aware of any.
Anything dealing with displaying weapons?
No.
Are you aware of any weapons in this case at all?
No, I'm not aware of
Okay.
it.
Are you aware of anything involving humiliation or playing games or anything like that?
No.
Are you aware of anything involving controlling what you do and what you read? Anything like that? Huh?
No.
Yeah. Are you aware of anything about joking about abuse? Do you know anything about that, or any hypotheticals asked you about that?
No, I don't know any.
Anything about shifting blame onto you?
No.
Anything about making you feel guilty about your kids?
No.
You know how old the kids are in this case?
No.
You know how old they are? You talked about a hypothetical of placing kids with the supposed abuser's parents as being a sign of control. How about if the kids are like 6 months old and they're placed with the man's parents?
I have no knowledge of how old the kids are in this case.
Any evidence of using a 6-month-old or a 1-year-old to relay messages?
No.
Using visitation?
No.
I'm kind of going through your wheel, but you know that, right? Any evidence of treating the person like a servant?
No.
Being the one to define gender roles?
No.
Using race, culture, religion, or citizenship against one another?
No.
Preventing anybody from getting a job?
No.
Are you aware that Ms. Wolfenbarger was working at Waffle House?
No, I don't know.
You were asked about isolation. Would you describe isolation as having an outside job, having friends, having your sister working with you? Is that isolation?
Depending on depending on what the domestic violence looks like I said, every relationship is unique. Isolation doesn't fit in a box where it has to be one thing.
Right, but if the point of isolation is to prevent you from having, recourse to friends or communities, I think you said committees or whatever it is, you have a sister, you have a job, you have co-workers, that's not isolation, is it?
It could be for some relationships. I don't know any examples of that.
Okay.
I haven't interviewed anyone in this case.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with hypotheticals is if you add a few more facts, they get more and more confusing, right?
No.
Well, I just gave you more facts dealing with isolation. You said, well, I just don't know about that.
It wasn't confusing. I said that I haven't interviewed anyone in the case, so I just can't speak to that.
Well, I'm not asking about your experience. I'm asking about your expertise. Would you describe that as being isolation?
It all depends on the nature of the relationship. Isolation isn't just one thing. I haven't interviewed anyone, so I can't answer that question.
Okay. The cycle of abuse, which is Exhibit 79, have you heard any evidence of a breakdown in communication? This is the tension building, number one. You heard any evidence about that or any hypotheticals about that?
No.
Have you heard any evidence of blaming, threats, intimidation, number two?
No.
Number three, abuser apologizes. Any evidence of that in this case that you know of?
No.
Gives excuses, blames the victim, denies abuse, anything like that?
No.
The fourth stage, calm. Any evidence of any of that in this case?
I don't have any evidence of this case. I haven't read any police reports. I haven't interviewed anyone. I'm not here for guilt or innocent. I'm just giving the science of what these tools mean and answering the hypotheticals as I'm asked.
Would you agree with me that many people who commit the crime of murder are not involved in an abusive relationship?
I can't answer that question because I don't know. I don't know.
You are aware from your experience that many people who are in an abusive relationship don't commit murder?
Yes.
I know you say you know none of the facts in this case, but you know some by virtue of the fact of the hypotheticals that Ms. Hilton said, these are the ones I'm going to use. Do these work? Can we use these, right? So you know from her preparing you that these are going to be the facts of the case. She wouldn't be asking you about something totally irrelevant, would she?
No.
Okay. Did you tell her to change any of the hypotheticals to
No.
make them?
Oh,
Okay.
no.
Fine, good enough. I think you said you have no opinion whatsoever about this case, right?
I was called to do the science. I can't diagnose domestic violence. I can't do guilt or innocent. I'm not a prosecutor or someone of the court.
I mean, I understand that, and I appreciate it. The point is that your testimony is just general observations about the way lots of different relationships that are bad exist, right?
No.
I use too many words that aren't appropriate, right? There are abusive relationships involving power and control. Your testimony focuses on that, but you don't know anything about this case, right?
No.
Correct?
Correct.
Okay. And as Ms. Hilton said, you haven't read a single police report, right?
No.
If I It's the problem with the negative question. That's correct, right? You haven't read a police report.
No, I haven't read a police report.
All right. You know, these jurors have heard, I don't know, a dozen witnesses. You didn't hear any witnesses at all, correct?
No,
You've not talked to the detectives in this case,
no,
or the medical examiners,
no,
family members of the people involved,
no,
either the defendant or Melissa Wolfenbarger, correct?
no, I'm not an investigator, no.
Right. You haven't talked to her. Have you learned anything about her parents and her family and her upbringing?
No,
Even from watching a little TV or learning a little bit about the case?
no,
No idea?
I have no idea.
Okay, all right. You haven't talked to me about this case, right?
No,
We had one brief court appearance together last week, but other than that, you and I don't know each other at all, right?
no.
Okay. Those are all the questions I had.
Ms. Hilton, anything else?
Now, Mr. Samuel asked about different parts of the cycle of abuse. Could arguing be something that occurs in the tension building phase?
Yes,
Loud arguing, could that be something in the tension building phase?
yes,
What about dragging of hair? Could that be something that be in the physical abuse or incident part of the cycle of abuse?
yes,
What about dragging someone up the street? Could that be a part of the incident phase of cycle of abuse?
yes,
Okay. What about markings on necks consistent with strangulation? Could that be evidence of an incident of
Yes.
abuse? Could a victim or survivor who drops a TPO after a private meeting with a perpetrator be examples of what can happen in the reconciliation phase?
yes,
Can a survivor, who after meeting with her abuser privately decides to give full custody and control over her child, something that can happen in the reconciliation phase?
yes,
And give full custody of her child to the abuser's mother. Could that be something that happens in the reconciliation phase?
yes,
If a survivor, after an alleged abusive incident, once she called the police, goes back to the abuser, could that be something that happens in the reconciliation phase?
yes,
And are those some examples of what you've seen about how the cycle of abuse can occur in a domestic violence relationship?
yes.
I have no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Samuel.
No, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. You may be excused. You can step down.
Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's about 3:05. We're going to take an afternoon break, and probably 15 minutes, maybe 20. And we'll be back in here at 3:25. Realistically, it's going to be closer to 3:30. You know how that works. You've developed an understanding of court time now. Thank you for your understanding. We are in recess, and we'll get you back in here as quick as possible. Thank you all. You may be seated. Anything we need to put on the record regarding that witness or anything else before we adjourn?
No,
for a break.
Can you put on the record at the bench conference where I asked for a,
Yes, thank you for the reminder, Mr. Samuel. After the witness, Ms. James, was called, the parties approached, and Mr. Samuel requested a limiting instruction on the basis of 404 regarding other instances that would form the basis of hypotheticals about which Ms. James would be asked. The court, I advised you, Mr. Samuel and Ms. Hilton, that my ruling had been that those prior incidents were intrinsic, and that my understanding of the law is that intrinsic evidence is admissible for any purpose, and therefore no limiting instruction was required or appropriate. So I did not give one. Separately, though, Mr. Samuel requested that the court give a limiting instruction regarding expert testimony. Although it is not something I typically do, the state did not object. And so I indicated that I would give that instruction, which I did after the state offered Ms. James as an expert, and Mr. Samuel elected to defer his examination and voir dire of that witness and her qualifications until after the direct examination. So I instructed the jury. Any objection to the charge that I gave the jury, Ms. Hilton?
None from the state, Your Honor.
Mr. Samuel?
no objection. But I also asked for a prior difficulties instruction.
Thank you. You are correct for clarifying that. You did, in fact, ask for a prior difficulties instruction. But as I said, my understanding is that because the evidence was intrinsic, it's admissible for any purpose and is not limited as 404B or potentially prior difficulties evidence would be.
Understood.
Anything else?
None from the state, Your Honor.
Okay. We're in recess till about 3:30. Jeff, where did that officer go?